fabulous show.
Alaska.
I heartbeat Alaska.
It's heartbeat. Alaska.
Pull up a chair and enjoy the show.
You hear it from Sitka to Barrow. Gather around for Jeannie's show. It's the Aleut, the Indian and the Eskimo. It's the Aleut, the Indian and the Eskimo.
Welcome one, welcome all.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Green. Thank you so very much for joining us. On today's program, we travel to Canada, to the Yukon territories, and visit Haines Junction. Thanks to videographer Mark Sable, who visited there recently. I'll be back with Haines Junction right after this.
Heartbeat Alaska is made possible by Kupik Carlisle Transportation, your full-service transportation and logistics company.
A special thank you to Scan Home and Scan Office Furnishings. And thank you, Alaska Commercial Company, for your support.
Not the greatest of these. Love one another. Leaving the past, believing in the past.
Haines Junction is a fascinating community of about 800 people. And though it's small, it has a huge history. And today we look at some of that history of the First Nations people and how their ancestors actually lived. Haines Junction is a major crossroads. It's at mile 1016, a small community that's most famous for its surroundings, Kluane National Park. Haines Junction is a relatively new community. Its roots closely tied to the construction of the Alaska Highway and the Haines Highway. This area, however, has been well known to the Southern Tutchone for centuries. Lying on an important route for trade with the coastal Tlingit, it was originally known as Dukwakada, meaning high cash.
The reason why we call ourselves like First Nations people is that rather than tribes or bands or anything, is because we were like the First Nations people of Canada and also of the Yukon. That's why, you know, like when you hear us say our name, like Champagne and Ningiuk First Nation, you know, that's that's what we're really implying, that we were the First Nations of this land. So we have the ability under, you know, under the Constitution of Canada, our land claims is in the Constitution of Canada, and we have the ability to pass laws, you know, in regards to our land and our citizenship here in the, you know, in our area. Because we studied the Alaskan claim. You know, like I say, it took us 23 years before we made a deal, because we wanted to make sure that we had a claim that not only, you know, satisfied our people, but also protected our people and also gave us the ability, you know, to control our own future. You know, we negotiated a self-government agreement, you know, and in our land claims there's 28 agreements that deal with from water to, you know, fish to forestry to resource royalty sharing, you know, things like that, right down to implementation. So we have 28 chapters in our agreement, and we didn't go for money. You know, I mean, the Alaskans went for money and corporations. Corporations to us is a foreign entity. You know, I mean, like, you set up a corporation to do one thing, to make money. You know, and that's why we went for self-government here, where, you know, we wanted to control our land and our resources and our people.
The First Nations land claims allows more than self-government. It allows empowerment in preserving their culture and their language.
One of the mission statements for them is to get our culture back going. So they are looking at different programming that we can bring to our children, starting them off at a very young age, mothers and tots working together to learn how to speak the language. And we have our school here. We have a very strong native language component in there, and a lot of our students are taking native language, and they're allowed to take it right up to grade 12, whereas here in the Yukon we had to take, it was always French that we've had to take. So now we've got it so that you can take our language right up to grade 12. Because before it wasn't recognized, you couldn't use it if you wanted to go to university, or it wasn't counted as a credit to graduate even. So now it's under Athabaskan, and it's recognized in many universities now too. So,
welcome Heartbeat Alaska to Kwede Dan Kai, Long Ago People's Place. My name is Meda. I'm Southern Tutchone, and we're located just on the other side of Champaign, Yukon.
The homeland of the First Nations people of this area is located in a land of great natural beauty and biological richness. Halfway between Haines Junction and Whitehorse is Champaign Village. 100 years ago, the First Nations people here pursued a subsistence hunting and fishing lifestyle. Caribou, moose, Dall sheep, mountain goat, gophers, and small mammals were hunted and trapped for food and clothing. Resident fish species in the lakes and rivers were also an important food source and were taken throughout the year. Villages were normally situated on lakes. The discovery of Klondike gold in 1898 initiated the first great influx of non-natives into the region, changing life forever.
My name is Meda Williams. I'm actually Southern Tutchone and Northern Tutchone. I'm a member of the Wolf Clan people. And the camp that I'm going to walk you into is a recreation of a long ago people's place, which is pronounced Kwede Dan Kai. So welcome. Try to imagine actually living in a structure made out of moose skins and actually staying from late fall, October, right until springtime, gathering moss as a chinky material and cutting babiche for tying strings to hold the skins on a spruce and alder willow frame. Okay, I invite you to walk in. Just watch your step as the trail slopes down, and to find a seat on the caribou hides on the inside. So with 5 children and 5 grown adults, they would all be nestled in here for a very long and cold winter. The clothing that you would be wearing is actually made out of caribou hides like this, with the hair against the skin, and the flesh side was scraped and softened. The small children wore 2 layers of caribou skin. The first layer was the hair against the skin, and then flesh to flesh with the second, and the hair on the outside. Okay, and then you'd have like a hot fire in a pit in the center of your dwelling, and you would gather a lot of dried wood, not using green wood. If you use green wood, become very smoky in here. All you need to finish up this structure is to actually put moose skin over the doorway, and then to put another smaller hide up above so that all the snow and the coldness wouldn't all creep in. The spruce branches that you lay on the ground acts as a barrier to keep the coolness off of your back area and your kidney area. So it's always good to have spruce on the ground, and we change this periodically. During a 5-month period, we probably change it about 4 times as it gets dry. Okay. So as you're going out of the entrance, again, watch your head above so that you don't hit the top of the doorway. Okay. Okay, this is one of our trapping systems, one of the more humane ways of gathering fur. animals for trading and for your personal clothing. This particular trap here was actually given to us as a gift by the late Sam Williams of the Haines Junction area. He came out and actually built this trap for us, explained the whole mechanism of how it works, and I'd like to set it for you and show you how it's to fall. This particular trap is actually the right size for a fox, and usually was built during the summer months and used at the coldest time of winter. Okay, there's a caged area here which is covered with brush when it's winter, and there's only one entrance way, and that's in here. So with a fox, the fox would come around several times smelling bait, which the bait is placed on the back part of the caged area with a line that comes around over to this side and is attached to a trigger stick and a balancing stick. What you want is you want the animal to go in, take the bait, pull back, and release these 5 logs, which will come down in the midsection of the animal and crush and separate the spinal system. So it'd be here. Okay. So when the animal takes the bait and starts to pull, starts to move the trigger stick and comes down. This is actually a temporary type shelter. A shelter like this was actually used for very short periods of time, starting usually in the spring. When you built these brush houses, you picked areas where you were going to be gathering spring animals that were returning, like ducks. You'd go to an area and you actually gather and hunt ducks, and then you would place poles across the center and start smoking and drying the duck. Then once you've had your fill of eating ducks, you would actually move and leave the shelter as is, and you'd move to another area, maybe to go ice fishing or hunting beaver, and other kinds of foods like that. Again, you see a lot of spruce that's been used on a shelter like this one, where it's all placed on the ground as a barrier, spruce on the walls, spruce on top of the roof area, which is slightly slanted downwards, and moss. Moss acts as a sponge system, so when it's raining, the moss will hold the rain, so you can sit and sleep within the structure and not get soaking wet. Structures like this were quite common throughout the Yukon, especially to people who were very subsistent, people that hunted for the food or the animals for food and for clothing, would actually place the bones of the animals they hunted out of respect. They would place the bones high. Nature will actually take all the remains off the bones, and then eventually these bones will be used for bone tools, like the bottom jaw, a moose jaw. You would use that as a 2-pronged fish spear that was placed on the end of a long spruce pole. You have caribou bones up there, and you have different leg bones, like leg bones for hair punching tools and defleshing tools for tanning and preparing moose skins and caribou skins. A structure like this was very important to people who lived off the land and depended on the land for food and for survival. This structure here is actually a smokehouse, which is very functional. Later on this month, we will actually start gathering salmon and fish, and we'll start cutting up and preparing it for smoking and drying. Every summer during the month of June, we usually gather all these poplar willows, which actually act as a shader or to keep the hot sun off of your food. We prepare and we take salmon and actually lay it down here on the ground on willows, and we cut and prepare the salmon and move them up onto these racks. And we will keep a smudge actually burning in this old tin here. For fire hazard reasons, we are using this small tin. We go out and we gather this orange rotten wood, which creates a very slow smoking type of a fire, like with no flame. And this keeps the maggot fly away from your food while you're trying to harden the outside. Once it's hardened on the outside, the little bit of breeze that comes through here will actually finish the process and actually make it air dried. Okay. Later in the fall, we actually elders bring caribou meat and moose meat from their freezers, getting it ready for fresh food for moose hunts in the fall. So we actually will thaw it out and we'll prepare it, we'll cut it up and we'll smoke and dry it here in this smokehouse, and then we return it back to the elders.
Thank you so very much, Mark Sable, and everyone else for your help in that story. And now for our favorite segment, music videos.
Inuuqatigigakkit naligi maritsugi ikayuqtaugu matwaruvi uqarpaniaqquti isumagi khattaraki aulasimalittuaravi takugu malle khattaragi tuitagunnetuaravi ilinit naligu sukama daimangat isumagi wapagi ayuk salituarvi ilinit naligu sukama daimangat isumagi wapagi
Thank you, everyone, for joining me for Heartbeat Alaska, Native News and Native Information. I really love hearing from you. Email me, won't you? Also, we want to find out what you'd like to see on Heartbeat Alaska, especially if you have some neat story ideas. God bless every single one of you. And join me again next week right here for Heartbeat Alaska.
Spoke with the tongues of angels, but we didn't have love. No, we didn't have love. We had faith that could move any mountain, but it wasn't enough, 'cause we didn't have love. We had wings, but we did not fly. We had vision, but we didn't have sight. Now I can see that the greatest of these